Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're back on the bridge of an aircraft carrier for a battle report. This time, bringing you this game from Tier 6 American carrier, USS Ranger. Now, if you paid attention to a video earlier this week, you saw me do a replay in Furious. I'm doing one in Ranger. I'll have one next week in Ryuho. And honestly, for me, this is a bit of a kind of just taking a spin through the Tier 6 carriers. I didn't quite get finished with the Tier 8 ones, but I'm still working on that. We are running a current challenge inside my clan for the best base XP in Tier 6 carriers, because Tier 6 carriers are kind of widely considered this weird, weak middle ground. And so we're all kind of learning. They're actually, what I'm learning, what I'm discovering for myself, is that they're a great place to learn the overall basics of the carrier mechanics, right? Tier 4, the planes are too slow, but starting at Tier 6, you start to learn. First of all, it's the first place what you really learn what it's like to be up-tiered, right? You'll find yourself in Tier 8 games. You'll start finding ships that actually have meaningful anti-aircraft defenses. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with teams that stack up, and how do you adjust your play and so on? So if you want to learn carrier, right? If you're serious about wanting to learn the mechanics, slog through the Tier 4 and spend time at Tier 6. Tier 6 is where the education really begins, in my opinion. It's what I'm learning, anyway. So, spawning here on the north side of Trident in USS Ranger. Ranger has a really weird history in this game. She's never been considered a very good aircraft carrier, and in my mind, she still carries some of that stigma. You saw me there take out the rocket planes early. Go for a fishing expedition. I did at least locate one of the enemy Minakazes. I got a little bit of chip damage into a couple of cruisers, though not much for it. Just, I stumbled across the Minakaze too late to get rockets onto him. A smart Japanese destroyer player that keeps his AA turned off is challenging to find with rockets because he doesn't light himself up, and then when you do find him, you very commonly don't have enough time to get rockets onto him to set up an attack run. I bring the torpedo bombers back, mainly fishing for this Bayern over here. He's got a little bit of help here with this Königsberg. That's a little irritating. But I am going to put some good damage in this Bayern. We're going to get one torpedo run here off from his port side. We'll get to skip past him, and we'll get another torpedo run off from his starboard side. You can see there the other Minakaze. I've kind of accidentally stumbled across that guy. He's just off the Bayern's bow. And this Bayern is going to have a really bad game, right? Like, I just took out his... He ate 2 torpedoes and an engine crit there. You see he's flooding. He's on fire in 2 places. I'm about to put more torpedoes into him, and he's got a couple of cruisers that are continuing to light him on fire. He's not having a very good game so far. I reached for the dive bombers for the first time this game, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Intending to go back and dive bomber this Bayern, but it looks like as I'm heading south, I'm kind of like, he's going to be dead before I get there, and sure enough, team takes care of it. Just like that, one battleship off the board, and I'm at about 30k damage. Like, that feels pretty good. Nice little early torpedo run there. Some solid early damage. There's a Kirov and a Königsberg over here, and I'm kind of like, well, I've got these dive bombers. I might as well do something with them. But what's going to happen, and this is where you start to see the power of clustered up ships, right? The Königsberg is here. The Kirov is here. The Hawkins is here. Even the Trento is pitching in a little bit. The Minakaze's A is going, all 3 points of it. And I swallow some flak. I'm going to get a crappy bomb run off on this Kirov. And yeah, I should never have attempted that run. That was a terrible idea to even try that bomb drop, especially once I realized I was driving straight into 5 ships. I should have pulled those planes out, found somewhere else to be. That Königsberg in the middle, you see him there on the middle ring in about F6. That would have been a great target for me to go after, but no, that's not what I did. In any event, I have a little bit of indecision here, grabbing planes. I eventually settle on the rocket planes. Again, I think I'm looking at this Königsberg thinking, all right, well, he's low. Let's go get him. Light cruiser, rockets. I know how this ends. And again, to my team's credit, they're doing a great job of kind of focusing this guy off the board. He'll be dead momentarily. The trouble is that with 5 minutes gone, we're already upside down 2 ships, right? We just claimed 1 back, but we're still upside down on ships. I stumbled across the Minakaze, this time with the right squadron. I have to slow way down to try to get this run off, and I do manage to clip his stern here with a really solid little hit for 4k and a fire. You don't normally hit that many American rockets. Ranger's rockets are similar to Furious's rockets. They just are not pinpoint accurate. You're saturating an area that you want to try and catch the destroyer at an angle. If you're coming at him from dead astern or even dead broadside like this, you may be disappointed. And you see there, I only get a couple of rockets. Mid-tier, I'm going to say this now, and in the next video I'm going to make a liar of myself, but it's almost impossible to make devastating hits against destroyers with tier 6 carrier rockets. It can happen. It's incredibly rare. So if you're a destroyer player up against a mid-tier carrier, understand some of the limitations of the carrier as well, right? He will probably damage you. It's highly unlikely he'll kill you. This is not Hakuryu or Shokaku or Enterprise, right? These are fewer rockets into a targeting reticle that's just as big. So there's a lot less risk. Bring the torpedo bombers back, hoping to clean out this Hawkins. I'm looking at the map now, and you're starting to see that the enemy team is largely concentrated opposite me over on the 1-2 line. And I've kind of set up shop behind this little island up here at about C8. And so right now, my thinking is, okay, we're way down on points. You see, they're nearly 400 points down. We need to not only get some kills, and we are about to, as a team, about to get this Hawkins off the board, which is going to feel nice. But we need to get some caps. Like, we don't own a cap. The enemy for a while has owned the middle ring. They grabbed the inner ring very, very quickly earlier. And we've got to make up some ground. So as I pull back to the top view here, what I'm doing is I'm setting my waypoints to start moving. What I initially did was I set my Ranger up to run down the 10 line. But shortly, before long, you're going to see me make a change. I'm going to go back to that map view, and of course you can't see it in a replay, but I'm actually going to set my waypoints so that I drive down about the 7-8 line, much closer to the cap circle than I originally had planned. And some of that's because, if you look at the map, the Minakaze is a bit of a threat. The Kirov is running. There's a Trento on the 3 line. There's just nothing on. They have no ships basically on the entire eastern half of the map to threaten me with. So I just decide, let's be more useful. As I'm spending more time playing carriers, I'm purposely making an effort to try and get better about my hull position. Right? Your hull position when you drive a carrier dictates how quickly you're able to put planes back into theaters of action, right? So the closer, and this is a razor's edge you're balancing on. This is the trick. The closer you're able to keep your carrier to the fighting without it getting shot up and killed, the better for you and the better for your team. But it's a very fine tightrope to walk. I grabbed the rockets, coming back, of course, for this Minakaze that I know exactly where he is. He's been spotted for quite some time. I dumped a fighter over him earlier, hoping my team would shoot at him and finish him off. No dice. But you're going to see over these next couple of passes the frustration of dealing with American rocket drops very commonly that I find. You know, I line this guy up, he gives me an angle, 3 rockets. All right, fine. So we'll get flipped around here. Again, this guy's firing his guns. Like, this is, I've got all the time in the world to set these runs up, right? Starting at about 3 clicks. All right, we'll come back. He's giving me a decent shot here, a bit of a broadside, maybe a small angle. Let's line this up, and 3 rockets. It's like, brutal. One of the things you're going to struggle with in Ranger, that thankfully you deal with less of this in Lexington, is the size of her torpedo squadron drops and her rocket squadron drops. He's only 2 planes apiece, and it's very difficult sometimes to get impactful, meaningful damage out of only 2 torpedoes or only 8 or 10 rockets or whatever it is. It's very frustrating. But again, mid-tier carrier, tier 6 carriers, like I was saying, a little more forgiving in this instance because there's just fewer ships out there that can really punish your mistakes with really, really good AA. Taking fire, approaching target. This Kirov is now the last surviving ship on this half of the board for the enemy team, and he's going to have me spotted on the surface momentarily. I'm continuing to move south. You see there, my hull's at about E8 or so. But this series of drops is really frustrating, right? Like, I've watched it 2 or 3 times now, trying to figure out how I could have done this differently or better. But this guy plays a really clever game, and and dodges a bunch of these torpedoes. And this really highlights the point I was just making about the frustration of only having a couple of torpedoes or a handful of rockets, right? I'm trying to put one torpedo into this guy, and I just cannot seem to get there. And the Leglissionaire, you see him there entering the middle of the board. The friendly Leglissionaire doing a great job, like putting shells down here and trying to, you know, help me out. But oh man, the Kirov finally makes a mistake right there, though. He cuts his engine speed, and against an aircraft carrier, that's almost the kiss of death. I have exactly one torpedo plane left here. I get one torpedo into the water, and finally, we're gonna get this guy out right there. Oh. Earlier, we were down 400 points. That gap is now narrowed. We're only down about 30 points, and we're actually up 2 ships because the other flank, those guys way up on the A line and the 5-6 line in the center, the Nurembergs and the Exeter, have played a great game, and we're actually in a position where we can start capping things. So, again, my hull position allows me to impact the board now because of its epicenter. You don't normally find yourself in this position as a carrier. So I'm intentionally now driving my carrier into the outer ring, and I'm the closest ship. The Leglissionaire's in the middle, and I'm going to start doing some cap work as we find the surviving enemy Minakaze. Now, our Leglissionaire is kind of low as well. I'm not necessarily saying he could lose a gunfight to this guy, but why risk it? Get some rockets into him, team cleans him up, and that just leaves the enemy Ranger. And literally just like that, this entire game has shifted, and now things feel a lot better. You see me here? I'm capping the outer ring. I will cap this ring. This will be a solo cap for me momentarily, and then I'll set my waypoints just to line up for a middle ring cap. While you see the Leglissionaire there, he's working the center of the board. Now I grabbed the torpedo bombers. I think, right? No. What is this? Sometimes I hate the replay system. I can't actually tell what aircraft I have. Yellow Wings is torpedoes. Yes, there they are. Okay, I'll remember this in a minute. These are the TBD Devastators. So I'm out here looking for this Ranger, thinking I'm going to get some torpedo strikes on this guy. But as he brings in his own torpedo planes, I decide I want to go back and manually drive my hull. I don't want to eat torpedoes, and I want to focus. He's there focusing my AA sector. I want to help contribute my AA to the defense of this Leglissionaire on my starboard side. One thing about Ranger, she is incredibly easy to citadel. She's detected from orbit, but she has a pretty solid little AA suite for a tier 6 ship. So she definitely has some disadvantages. This is not a ship that you can take into harm's way, let's be honest. She gets, as soon as she starts taking shells, she folds like a house of cards. Enemy Ranger's all that's left, of course, and just now in chat, I'm realizing I have 2 really good friends on the enemy team. I didn't even look that close when we loaded in, but these are guys that I have known literally for 25 years. These are real-life friends that play the game, and one of the nice things about this particular game is that right after I got done playing this game, we divvied up for a while and literally just derped around at tier 6 all night and had a great time. I managed to get 1 torpedo into the enemy Ranger here. He's kind of staying spotted as that Nuremberg off to his north is continuing to drop shells on him. I grabbed the dive bombers. He's aground now and like literally dead stopped. And honestly, if I lose these bombers to, you know, his AA or his catapult, his combat air patrol fighters, I don't really care. They're just dive bombers. American dive bombers to me they're not as bad as Graf Zeppelins, right? In the sense of when you using Graf Zeppelin's dive bombers at tier 8 you might as well be buying lottery tickets. Like, you just have no idea what's going to happen. American bombers are slightly more consistent, but no less frustrating sometimes. Unfortunately, I'm not able to completely defend that Leglissionaire. He does eventually eat a torpedo and go down. But we put some damage into this Ranger with some of the dive bombers, and now as he's almost off the board, down now about under 7k, I grab the rockets because I know something from my experience in these, and that is these American H-Fires rockets do really good work against almost all non-British carriers, and sure enough, good solid 4 or 5k hit there for a victory. Nice little seal the deal there on the win. When you look at the XP totals, right, I come out on top of this match in terms of XP, and I'm really convinced. The guys in chat, when I posted this replay, these screenshots, they were like, how did you do that little damage and come out on top? And I'm really convinced it's because of my hull position. I was able to to kind of, yes, cycle planes faster and get some targets off the board, but because of my hull position, I was actually able to contribute to capping control areas on the board. That's not something you're going to find yourself commonly able to do as an aircraft carrier, but when the opportunity arises, you need to be able to, seize it, maybe see it coming a few minutes in advance if possible, and be in a position where you can help your team out and make that contribution. Anyway, guys, little game in Tier 6 Ranger there. I'll post a review game early next week probably. In the meantime, you guys wash your hands, be safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.